Hello, my name is Leslie, and today I will be talking about my at-home garden. I want to include that the biggest thing that I got from this project was that a lot of us started off by not knowing where the food on our plate was coming from, and that honestly left a big impact on me. My goal for my at-home garden was to grow veggies that I eat pretty often. My setup outside was pretty simple since we already had 3 raised beds and I only had to clear out 1. However, because I live in Oregon, I had to start all my seedlings inside. The seeds I used were zucchinis, green beans, spinach, and green onions. While I was clearing up one of the garden beds for my seeds, I noticed that there was growth coming out of the other garden beds. About a year or 2 ago, my mom had already planted a couple things but didn't keep up with the care. However, they still continued to grow. She had green onions, tomatillos, strawberries, and potatoes, and I even got to harvest a couple potatoes while digging around. Throughout my garden journey, I had a couple complications I had to deal with. Since this project started during the winter, we had a snowstorm, and the temperatures in the house dropped a lot due to power outages, which really sucked because my seedlings were already starting off inside because they weren't capable of starting off outside. Along with that, I didn't have much lighting or spots with enough lighting inside the house since they were already occupied by any other houseplants we had. I didn't have any good locations to keep them away from kids because the one spots that did have enough lighting were reachable for my dog and kids to run around and easily knock them down. And the last one being is that they needed a lot of attention. I was spraying them daily as the soil was drying out often. And at one point I had to leave for a couple weeks and I came back to most of them dried out. As far as growth goes, in the beginning temperatures were still in the 40s or lower, so my seedlings weren't growing as fast, and they were placed at 3 different window locations indoors. However, I noticed that even though they were all planted at the same time, they all grew at different rates. I later on learned that this was because some of them were close to my houseplants, which allowed them to get more humidity. The zucchini and green beans took the longest to bloom, but within 2 weeks, the spinach and green onions started to sprout. For fertilizer, my original plan was to kill 2 birds with 1 stone and use fish emulsions, so I wouldn't have to worry about pest control and I'd also be fertilizing. I wasn't able to do that because of my access to the fish and being able to blend it, so I ended up looking up easier ways to make at-home fertilizer, and I found a recipe that called for coffee grounds, eggshells, banana peels, and water, and I just blended that all up, put it in a spray bottle, and sprayed my plants every couple days. Throughout my garden journey, I had to leave and take a 2-week trip to Mexico. This is where things went downhill for my seedlings at home because they didn't have anyone to constantly spray them and they dried out. But while I was in Mexico, I put my knowledge to a better understanding. I saw that people in the Pueblo knew more about where their food came from. Most of them grew it. And honestly, there was no real grocery stores to get food from. So everyone took care of the food and land they had. There was a lot of monoculture crops for income. An example was everywhere we drove, there was either mango trees, coconut trees, lime trees, because those are easy to grow and take care of, and it'll bring good money to people in the Pueblo. While I was there, I got to help my grandpa take care of his mango trees that he planted 5 years ago. He said this summer they'll be ready to pick and he'll be ready to make profit off of them. He waters them every Thursday, so I got to be there for one of the watering days. I am now back in Oregon and it's definitely a lot warmer outside, so I was able to transfer whatever seedlings I did have left onto the garden bed. Because of the weather, I am now going to create a more frequent watering cycle since it is raining a lot less. And I will continue fertilizing. My goal is to continue to care for my plants as they are still small and to take care of the other plants in the other garden beds as well since they are growing.